one of the most enigmatic chapters in the history of the Dwarves revolves around the legendary city of Khazad-dûm, or Moria, as it is more commonly known, and the strange lack of knowledge Gimli, son of Glóin, had about the fate of his kin during the War of the Ring. Moria, the greatest of the Dwarven halls, was founded ages ago by Durin the Deathless. These vast halls and corridors once echoed with the sounds of industry and the hammering of metal. Gimli, son of Glóin, emerged from a distinguished lineage. His father, Glóin, was a member of Thorin Oakenshield's company, which reclaimed the Lonely Mountain from the dragon Smaug. The War of the Ring, a conflict that engulfed all of Middle-earth, saw alliances formed and broken as the Free Peoples fought against the rising shadow of Sauron. The saga of Moria's abandonment and the Dwarves' trials is filled with crucial events and heroic figures. One of these events is the Battle of Azanulbizar, fought in the year 2799 of the Third Age. This battle, a critical episode in the war between the Dwarves and Orcs, saw the Dwarven forces clash with the Orcs of Moria, led by Thrain II, the father of Thorin Oakenshield. The Dwarves sought to avenge the death of j.r.r, Thrain's father, who was killed by the Orc chieftain Azog. The battle was fierce and costly, with many Dwarves falling in the melee. Among the notable figures was Dain Ironfoot, a young dwarf who showed remarkable bravery by slaying Azog, an act that avenged j.r.r and brought some closure to the Dwarves' quest for vengeance. However, the victory was bittersweet. The Dwarves had won the battle, but they lacked the strength and numbers to reclaim Moria. The vision of Durin's Bane, the Balrog, looming in the depths, ensured that the halls of Moria would remain a place of death and terror. As Thrain and his people withdrew, the fate of Moria was sealed, abandoned, and forgotten, a shadow of its former glory. Then Thrain turned to Dain and said, "But surely my own kin will not abandon me?" "No," replied Dain, "you are the father of our people, and we have bled for you, and we will again. But we will not enter Khazad-dûm. You shall not enter Khazad-dûm alone. I have looked through the shadow of the door. Beyond the shadow, it still waits for you, the bane of Durin. The world must change, and another power than ours must come before Durin's folk walk again in Moria." Thrain II's journey did not end with the Battle of Azanulbizar. The loss of his father and the failure to reclaim Moria weighed heavily on him. Ultimately, he embarked on a desperate quest to retrieve the last of the 7 rings of power given to the Dwarves, only to be captured and imprisoned by Sauron in the dungeons of Dol Guldur. His son Thorin would later lead the quest to reclaim Erebor, the Lonely Mountain, a saga well told in The Hobbit. Dain Ironfoot, who would later become king under the mountain, never forgot the horrors of Moria. His leadership and wisdom guided the Dwarves through the years that followed, but the memory of Azanulbizar and Moria's lost glory haunted the Dwarves' consciousness. The decision to abandon Moria was pragmatic but deeply painful, leaving a void in the hearts of the Dwarves who longed to return to their ancestral home. Balin, a dwarf of Thorin's company and a survivor of the quest to reclaim Erebor, was not content to rest on past laurels. His impatience and yearning for Moria drove him to gather a small group of dwarves and set out to reclaim the lost city in 2989 of the Third Age. Balin's expedition was fueled by a mix of hope, ambition, and perhaps a touch of pride. The dream of restoring Moria to its former glory was a powerful motivator. Balin and his companions initially succeeded in retaking parts of Moria. They re-established a colony, with Balin taking the title of Lord of Moria. For a time, it seemed that the ancient halls would once again echo with the sounds of Dwarven activity. However, the success of Balin's expedition was short-lived. In 2994, disaster struck. Balin was killed by an Orc archer while he stood at Mirrormere, marking the beginning of the end for the nascent colony. After his death, the Dwarves were besieged by orcs and other creatures from the depths, culminating in a final desperate stand in the Chamber of Mazarbul. The records of this tragic end were discovered years later by the Fellowship of the Ring, who found the Book of Mazarbul chronicling the dark fate of Balin's colony. The fall of Balin's expedition underscored the perilous nature of Moria and the futility of trying to reclaim it without sufficient forces and allies. The once hopeful enterprise turned into a grim tale of loss and unrealized dreams. Yet Gimli remained unaware of the events in Moria. Various factors contributed to this lack of knowledge. According to Tolkien's writings, after Balin and his company arrived in Moria, they sent messages to Erebor for 5 years, reporting their success and glory. However, everything changed when Balin was fatally struck by the Orc archer. Although the dwarves managed to kill Balin's assassin, more orcs arrived, forcing them to retreat inside. It is also mentioned that Oin attempted to escape through the west gate but was captured by the Watcher in the water. No one succeeded in escaping to relay the news, and the orcs were unlikely to send word to provoke the dwarves' wrath, having suffered greatly the last time they faced the dwarves in a major battle. This subject is discussed by Glóin during the Council of Elrond, though it was many years ago. Glóin said, "A shadow of unease fell on our people. Where it came from, we did not perceive at first. Words began to be whispered in secret, saying that we were shut in a narrow space, and that greater wealth and splendor might be found in a wider world. Some spoke of Moria, the great works of our fathers that we call in our own tongue Khazad-dûm, and declared that now at last we had the power and the numbers to return." Glóin sighed, "Moria, Moria! Wonder of the northern world. Too deep we delved there, and woke the nameless fear. Long have those vast mansions lain empty since the children of Durin fled. But now we spoke of it again with longing, yet with dread, for no dwarf has dared to pass the doors of Khazad-dûm for many lives of kings, save there alone, and he perished." At last, however, Balin listened to the whispers and resolved to go. Though Dain did not give leave willingly, he took with him Ori and Oin and many of our folk, and they went away south. It is now 30 years gone. For a while, we had tidings, and they seemed good. Messages reported that Moria had been entered and a great work begun. Then there was silence, and no word has ever come from Moria since. As it emerges from Glóin's statement, the absence of news was probably a bad sign, though not definitive. This would lead his son Gimli to hold the same belief. When the Fellowship later deliberated on whether to pass through the mines, Gimli and Gandalf discussed the matter, with Gandalf saying, "But most of the orcs of the Misty Mountains were scattered or destroyed in the Battle of 5 Armies. The Eagles report that the orcs are gathering again from afar, but there is a hope that Moria is still free. There is even a chance that dwarves are there, and that in some deep hall of stone, Balin, son of Fundin, may be found. Whatever it may be, we must follow the path we choose. I will go and look on the halls of Durin, whatever may wait there, if you can find the doors that are shut," said Gimli. This demonstrates once again that Gimli was not ignorant of the events that had occurred in Moria but might still be clinging to a thin hope, or merely a foolish hope, that Balin might have somehow survived and hidden. Gimli wanted more than anything to have an answer about the fate of his kin for his own peace of mind, and if the only way to get that meant an early end, at least he would have seen the halls of Durin in his final moments. In J.r.r. Tolkien's writings, Gimli's lack of knowledge is presented with a touch of sadness and regret. By contrast, Peter Jackson's film adaptations portray Gimli with a more optimistic and somewhat naive temperament regarding Moria. In the books, Glóin, Gimli's father, speaks of Moria with a mix of reverence and caution. The failure of Balin's expedition is suggested but not fully developed, leaving much to speculation and adding to the overall mystery. The dwarves' reluctance to openly discuss their losses, combined with practical communication difficulties, contributed to Gimli's ignorance. In the film adaptations, Gimli's character is imbued with a sense of hope and determination that contrasts with the more cautious approach in the books. This difference in characterization emphasizes the emotional depth and complexity of the dwarves' connection to Moria and their history. Gimli's journey through Moria in The Lord of the Rings thus becomes a tragic and bittersweet narrative. As he traverses the darkened halls of his ancestors, the realization of Balin's fate and the colony's failure hits him hard. His sorrow upon finding Balin's tomb is palpable, and it adds a layer of depth to his character, showing the weight of history and the personal cost of his journey. The tale of Gimli's lack of knowledge about Moria serves as a reminder of the dwarves' deep connection to their past, the challenges they face in a changing world, and the enduring hope that sustains them even in the face of overwhelming loss. The story of Moria, filled with both triumph and tragedy, is a testament to the resilience and tenacity of the dwarves, who continue to honor their heritage despite the many trials they endure.